got to turn it around. If we all could love one another, all the world could be as one. Just take time to love one another, all the world could be as one. Black man, white man, standing together, no more fighting to be done. Yellow, red man, dancing together, all the world could be as one.
And good morning. Welcome to the April 22nd edition of To Heal DC. This is Joni. And good morning, Chuck Hicks. Glad you'll be with us for the hour. We have a packed show in store for you today. We have 3 segments. I'm going to start with the last segment. We're going to be honoring Earth Day with our, I'm calling him our DC Earth Day hero, Dennis Chestnut, who's not only going to be speaking about Earth Day, but what you can do in your communities to protect yourself with this oncoming increasing climate catastrophes right here in DC. So stay tuned for the end of the show. Dennis Chestnut, Earth Day commentary. Before that, we're going to be talking about a play that's going to be coming to the DC area in honor of none other than John Brown, the return of John Brown, a musical. So that'll be our second segment. And I am extremely excited and thankful for the first segment of our show. We are going to be speaking in a moment with a 100-year-old Jewish American activist named Jules Rabin. He is joining us from Vermont. He has spent a great deal of his life, 60 years at least, in support of and in solidarity with Palestine and against this genocide. I want to thank my dear friend Carol Hausner for introducing me to Jules. And one of the many reasons I invited Jules on today is that some people may know that this is, I believe, the first day of Passover, but Passover is celebrated for many hundreds of years in the Jewish community. But one line in the Passover service says, "How is this night different from other nights?" We might change it this year as, "How is this Passover different from other Passovers?" And I would say, as what we now call an anti-Zionist Jew, there is nowadays, to this week and this year, in the midst of this genocide of Gaza, there is an unprecedented movement by many Jews of solidarity by anti-Zionist Jews against this horrific genocide. And it's with that thought that we welcome onto our airwaves Jules Rabin. Jules, if we could give you a drum roll, we would. We're very thankful to have you on the air. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Joni.
I'm so happy you can be with us. Let's start with you recently celebrated your birthday, and we'll talk a little bit more about your background as well. But your birthday, I believe, was April 6th. You turned 100, correct?
Correct.
And tell us what you did on your birthday.
Well, I did a thing that was strange to me, and that was to invite friends to join me at the main intersection of our little capital city, Montpelier, Vermont, and that was at the corner of State and Main Streets, to take note of what was happening in Gaza and to join me in protesting the extraordinary event which has been going on there for 6 months, which amounts to, in my view, a true genocide of Palestinian people in one part of Israel, Gaza, that is in Gaza itself. I thought half a dozen faithful friends would show up, but instead we were 75 people, and that's in our capital city of Vermont. Vermont is a low population state, and the capital city, Montpelier, is just 7,000 people. Well, it was a both serious and joyous occasion, my birthday on that street corner.
And I think it's important for listeners, of course, to recognize that young people are credited and should be credited for standing up against the genocide. Young Jewish students, and as we can see in Columbia University, right here, I'm in New York City now, so in New York City, unprecedented. We haven't seen this kind of protest since 1968. But we don't talk enough about the older folks who are also protesting against this genocide. So, Jules, I would like for you to read, you shared with me the words on your placard or your sign that you were holding that day, if you're able to share it with us.
I'd have to run downstairs.
Oh, no.
I don't want to take the time. The words, essentially. And I really rolled the words over and over in my mind. It didn't come easily to me, the statement, but what the statement amounts to in a few words is my wonder and regret and bitterness that the Israeli state, which wants to represent Jews of the world, is in this current invasion of Gaza. It's repeating I've lost the track of it. It's repeating. The sign says essentially, how can Israel do to Palestinians today what Nazis did to Jews in Europe 70 years ago? I think.
Absolutely.
Well,
yes.
I'm glad the point got through. It's much more succinctly stated in my placard, which, as I say, I deliberated over a long time.
Yes, and I'm going to say I'm very proud of you. This is not the first time you've been protesting against what's going on in Palestine, led by the Israeli government and enabled by the United States of America. We're the ones who are giving, a great bulk of the money to kill the children, kill so many, over 34,000 people now. But tell us a little bit about your. First, I guess I'll ask you about your upbringing and your parents, but then I want you to talk about what you've been doing for many decades to stand up against what's going on in Israel. But let's start just briefly, Jules, if you could tell us about your upbringing and your parents.
Yes. My parents came over from Russia, actually white Russia and Lithuania, but Lithuania was then part of Russia more than a century ago. That was in the early 1900s. And they came over for two reasons: for a better life, because as Jews they had few opportunities in the rural parts of Russia and Lithuania where they were living. But that was also a time when there were pogroms in Russia and in Lithuania, and so they fled out of fear for their lives. And I want to make a comment in relation to that. I've been reading about the essentially modern-day pogroms which have been going on in the West Bank of Palestine, Israel. The West Bank is distinct from Gaza. Palestinians living in the West Bank have more liberties than Palestinians living in Gaza. but the awful events in Gaza have, in miniature, they are mirrored in the West Bank regions of Palestine, Israel, and there are actual pogroms going on. And that is the second irony to my mind, that my parents, who fled the pogroms in Russia in the early 1900s, if they were alive, they would be witnessing pogroms being conducted by Jewish settlers in the West Bank, which is supposed to be Palestinian territory, but more and more of that territory is being seized by Jewish settlers for their own purposes, backed up by the Israeli government and the Israeli army. So there are pogroms going on as I speak now in the West Bank of Palestine, Israel. Pogroms that uncannily resemble the pogroms my parents fled from in White Russia and Lithuania 100 years ago.
Yes, actually more it's about 100 and almost 25 years ago. And I want to add as well, my grandparents left Russia, and then other grandparents left Poland, but Russia they left for the exact same reason at pretty much the same time of these pogroms, which was just a horrific thing. And as you say, it's being carried out now by the Israelis against Palestinians. Jules, share with us, you have quite an amazing background of more than 60 years. Quite a large part of your life has been spent in solidarity with the Palestinian people and in protests. I believe at one point maybe you could just briefly, I know it's hard to do it briefly, but I don't know if that started during the Vietnam War. I know you were involved in a major march, but share with us a little bit about your early journeys, many, many decades ago in support of against the Israeli, what was going on and in support of Palestine.
Well, Joni, we're mixing up categories because my history has been involved not only with Palestine, currently Palestine, and what's going on in Gaza is a main political concern of mine. I want to say, by the way, that I do other things in my life besides protest. We have a lot of acres around us here in Vermont, which as soon as the weather turns warmer, I'm going to be doing spring cleaning on the grounds, big grounds around this house. We don't live palatially. When I say big grounds, it means we've got a lot of empty acres around us. But I want to correct one other thing, Joni, and that's that Israel has only sporadically been a strong concern of mine. I have, in my funny life of protest, I've been involved from Vietnam to Iran in the brutalities committed by the United States in those faraway places like Vietnam. So it's only lately that I've been this preoccupied with what's going on in Palestine. I've long been critical of Israel's, I think of it as really a colonialist seizure of what was originally Palestinian territory. It's only lately that Palestine has become my chief concern. And I want to say I'm just about obsessed with what's happening in Palestine. I've never done such writing before. I've written to President Biden easily a dozen times. Every time I feel overwhelmed by what at that particular time in the last, since October 7th, has been going on in Palestine. I pick up a pen and write to Biden. I've also written to my senators, both my senators and my congresswoman. And that's because I've got so old, my legs don't like to stand for an hour in street protest. So I resort to writing the authorities. Biden, the Israeli ambassador to Washington, and our congressional legislation in Washington also. But I want to repeat that correction, Joni, that my sideline of political protest has not been directed so much at, certainly not exclusively, at Israel. Israel has committed many sins in the last 70 years, but I was more immediately concerned with the of the United States in Vietnam and in Iraq, closer to home as far as I'm concerned. But now the Israeli brutalities in Gaza, they've seized my mind, and that's what my pen hand writing to those authorities in America and Israel is concerned with now, as well as I will be able to do more street protests. I was at a street protest just Friday because the weather here has begun to better, and I can stand out. I can stand the cold better now than I could in the dead of winter.
Yes, and we're going to be running out of time soon. I wanted to let listeners know that you, Amy Goodman's brother, David Goodman, did a beautiful, in-depth 1-hour interview on you. I think if people probably can Google it and find that interview online, and maybe someday we can play it. I want to also, before we need to say goodbye, two things. If you could just say in one sentence that long march you did, an anti-war march. I think you went all around the many parts of the world, but if you could just describe that in one sentence, Jules.
Yeah, I'll be brief. That was in 1961, 1962, when the world was seized with fear of a major nuclear war between the United States and Russia, and a group of pacifists called the Committee for Nonviolent Action organized an incredible march starting in California and ending in Red Square in Moscow. I participated only from Indiana. I began at that point, but I did march across Europe. Not every step of the way. We did public speaking. We were mainly concerned with advocating against nuclear armaments, nothing to do with Israel.
But this is to say you are certainly a lifelong anti-war activist. That's for sure. Yeah. I wanted to just get in again before we need to move on. Of course, what we're seeing now in Columbia University, the Gaza Solidarity Encampment in Columbia University, is we haven't seen anything like this since 1968. I would encourage people who are not listening to Amy Goodman, at the very least, listen to her updates. And WBAI is also doing amazing coverage of what's happening on that Columbia campus. And then many other campuses around the country are staging these encampments in solidarity with what's happening in Colombia and against the genocide in Israel. And I understand, Jules, that you at one point were attending Columbia University, working for your doctorate, and you later dropped that goal and I must say became quite a well-known and cherished baker in Vermont. But if you could just say a word as we're getting ready to close about your thoughts and feelings about the student uprisings taking place at Columbia and around the country.
Well, I'm impressed, and I'm an old guy now, 100 years and a week beyond that old, and I am so impressed that young people, not necessarily Israeli, not necessarily Jewish, are protesting against the Israeli brutalities in Gaza. It's just shocking what is going on every day. I'm overwhelmed when I read the news about it. And Colombia is one flashpoint where that is going on, where there are protests.
Yes. And
against Israel's really, really brutal invasion of Gaza.
Yes, and it certainly does not represent us at all. And as we leave, Jules, as we know, this is the beginning of Passover. This Passover is quite challenging for many of us, and I would like to say that I'm thankful to see, Jules, you may not have seen this yet, but there's going to be unprecedented waves of uprising among anti-Zionist Jews who are against what's happening in Palestine. It's going to be taking place right here in D.C. Some of it has not yet been officially announced, but I think we are going to be seeing a different kind of protest this Passover that we have not yet seen in the past. People standing up against this genocide. So, Jules, we're about out of time. Your final words, and we hope to have you on another time. But your final words for us today.
Yeah, Joni, it's addressed to you. I've had a few phone conversations with you, and you sound kind of ordinary on the phone, but your radio voice is terrific. And I think you are a gift to the cause of Palestine and to your community in Washington, D.C., that with your voice and with your focused attention, you're doing what you do. So keep going strong.
And you too, Jules, you've inspired me. I was going to try to come up there and visit you in Vermont.
That's right.
And again, thanks to my friend Carol Hausner for introducing us. You're quite a well-known in Vermont, and we're very proud of you here in Washington, D.C., Jules. So we will be in touch. And thanks to your wife, Helen, as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to move on to none other than John Brown, whose birthday is coming up soon. We're going to be talking with a playwright of a play called The Return of John Brown. And Magic Mike, I don't know if you can play a little bit of that music.
Stand in freedom, retreat.
We've been messed with forever, and a day is this more of the same. John Brown, you claim, but despite your big name, why should we trust you? Ain't you a wise man? For centuries we fought for the man oppressed
Okay, now we're going to hear about what that song has to do with this play, musical, The Return of John Brown, coming right here to the Washington, D.C. area. I'm very excited to introduce Jean Bruskin. Jean Bruskin, who's actually right here in the DMV, spent 40 years in the labor movement and then retired and has been doing a series of plays. So let me welcome Jean Bruskin to WPFW.
Thank you, Johnny. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
And it's a pleasure to have you. I'm very excited about this play, The Return of John Brown. And as I was talking about my grandparents in the last segment, one of the first things that I can remember as a child was my grandfather. John Brown was his hero. He had many of the he got them in the early 1900s, biographies of John Brown. My mother, up until her last days, she would read John Brown's quotes from his biography when we went into the new year. So I cannot be more excited about this play. And so, first of all, tell us a little bit about the play, and then, of course, we're going to talk about how people can see it. Or you can also start out with a little bit about your history and what inspired you to focus on John Brown.
So I was a union organizer. I retired at the end of 2012. I've been doing that, in the labor movement my whole adult life. But at an earlier point, I had done some community theater. And when I retired, I decided that was part of what I was going to do. And so I previously wrote a couple plays that with music, and got together with some musicians, and we performed. The first play was called Pray for the Dead, a musical tale of morgues, moguls, and mutiny. And the second one was about Reconstruction, called The Moment Was Now. And both of them were done for union and working class audiences, because a lot of people, average working people, don't think about musicals as something for them. It's sort of, something for, it's like opera. It's too expensive,
Okay.
But then in this last play, I've always been interested in John Brown. And after all the Black Lives Matter protests and other things in the United States, I decided, okay, there's one person, other than Abe Lincoln, one white person in history who people know and think about as being against racism, and in his case, slavery, it would be John Brown. And so I started thinking about, and I knew about a lot about him, but I started thinking about what kind of a musical to make. And what I decided is the play starts out when they hanged John Brown in 1859, because John Brown actually organized a group of black and white people, went to Harper's Ferry area in West Virginia, or Virginia then, there wasn't a West Virginia yet, and to stage a raid in the Harper's Ferry Armory, free the weapons and hand them out to enslaved people all over the South and start an insurrection. And that failed, but he was hanged, but it set off enormous repercussions in the South, the terror in the South, and the move, this sort of morality in the North. His closing words were in the front page of every newspaper in the country. And so what I did is I start this play. You see John Brown getting hanged, and his actual last words that were read all over the country. And then the musical really starts, and John Brown magically reappears in the present day, right where they hanged him. And he gets rearrested by the sheriff, who's afraid he's going to stir up the Black Lives Matter crowd, put in in jail and put on trial. And then the whole story sort of evolves from there. And we sort of merge the past and the present in terms of what John Brown did and what it represents today. And it's got a lot of music, a lot of humor, a lot of drama, and it's a lot of fun. I'll just say that this is not what this is. What we're doing is a staged reading, which means we have talented actors, singers, we have pianists, but it's not a full production in that we're not yet at the level of scenery and choreography and all that stuff. So you'll get the full show, but not with all the sort of little extras. And what we want to do after this show is figure out how to get it a full production at a theater.
Fabulous. And as people who listen to WPFW and listen to this show, and Chuck can jump in here if he likes, we talk about John Brown a lot. Of course, one of our ongoing guests currently is Frank Smith with the African American Civil War Museum, used to be Harry Jones. We had long wanted to take a pilgrimage to Harper's Ferry. And of course, our other frequent guest over the years was Dick Gregory. And Dick Gregory was constantly talking about John Brown. And he always said that John Brown was the greatest man, not just a white man, the greatest man in history. So I'm very excited. I know Dick Gregory would be excited as well. I understand that you have Dick Gregory in the play.
Yeah, what happens in the opening scene after John Brown is hanged, and you hear his final words, you then hear comments from several people, Abe Lincoln, Malcolm X, and so on, about what John Brown meant. And Dick Gregory said in 2015, I consider John Brown the most important person in history because he's a white man who said he would die for the cause. That brother was beautiful.
And Dick Gregory said that many times on our airwaves. Again, he is part of the PFW family. I think Dick Gregory did a lot to make people think about John Brown more. And I think your play will do that as well, because as we know, many young people, I'm sure, do not really know about John Brown. I'm sure they do not teach the truth about John Brown in the public schools. I'm sure of that.
I'll just say, Joni, amazingly enough, I thought that he was sort of a legendary character, and that if you learn about the Civil War, you'd always know about John Brown. In fact, I found many people never heard of him, and people college educated, not college educated, black, white.
Of course.
And so it's really important that we get his story out there.
Absolutely. That's why we are so excited that you're doing this. We're going to do whatever we can to continue to promote you, because, of course, this is the so-called United States. They are not going to teach about John Brown. He's a revolutionary. We remain proud of him, and we're proud of you. So let's make sure that we tell people how they can watch, they can attend.
So this is first of all, it's a free performance, and on the 26th, this Friday night, the first show is going to be in Baltimore at the Mount Zion United Methodist Church. On Saturday night, it's going to be in D.C. at the MLK Library. The following weekend, May 4th and 5th, Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be at the actual historic site, the cabin where John Brown staged the raid near Harper's Ferry. It's across the river in Sharpsburg, Maryland. And it was from there that he gathered and staged the raid. And the cabin is still there. There's going to be a tour of the site. Hasn't been open for years. And to go to any of these performances, you go to our website, www.thereturnofjohnbrown.com. And there you'll see the different dates and times and addresses and you can just RSVP. It doesn't cost you anything, but we need to know that you're coming. So it's www.thereturnofjohnbrown.com. It's these next 2 weekends.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to join me with Lucy Murphy and a few other my friends, you can come to the Saturday performance. Again, that's at the Martin Luther King Library at 7 p.m. And that is co-sponsored by Labor Heritage Foundation and Teaching for Change. I'm very excited that Teaching for Change is also co-sponsoring it. So a few of us, you can meet us there at the library on Saturday. It's going to be from 7 to 9. I think there'll be a discussion afterwards. And Chuck, and I wish Chuck's going to be out of town, but one of the things that we have long wanted to do together with Dick Gregory and Harry Jones, they're both ancestors now, but even Frank Smith mentioned it the other week. We would like to figure out a way to take regular pilgrimages to Harper's Ferry in honor of John Brown. The day that he did that raid back in 1859 was October 16th. We may not be able to get there maybe we will this October 16th, but we do have May 4th and May 5th. I'm going to do whatever I can and get there on May 5th. And again, that's going to be actually tell us the site of the May 5th performance.
You get the address on the website, but this is in Sharpsburg, which is just across the river from Harper's Ferry.
Okay.
And it's a rural area, and it has, like I said, the actual historic site has been closed for a few years since before the pandemic, but there's going to be a tour at 11:30 and the musical outdoors with the background being the cabin at 1:00.
Okay, Jean Bruskin, I'm so excited about this play, The Return of John Brown, the musical. Again, you can go to the website, thereturnofjohnbrown.com. It's Saturday at the MLK Library, Friday night at Baltimore, and then the following weekend, it's going to be near Harper's Ferry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joni. I look forward to seeing you at some of the events.
Yes, and thank you for bringing John Brown back to us. We're happy he's returning.
Well, when we go to Sharpsburg and the play is The Return of John Brown and the cabin is in the background, he may show up.
He may show up is right, and Dick Gregory may show up as well. Okay. I bet Dick Gregory will be there. Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We're moving right along, and now, of course, it is Earth Day today. And I can think of no better guest to have on for Earth Day. I'm calling him the DC Earth Day hero, and that is Dennis Chestnut. Magic Mike, if you could play a little bit of that music to welcome Dennis on.
Let the rain fall on me, till I'm drenched clear through me. Don't care at all.
And that was Dennis's choice, a very beautiful choice, Leon Thomas. Dennis Chestnut, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, John.
I'm so excited to have you on. And this is, well, I'll just say our birthday week, me and Dennis. We're going to jump into what you were doing that relates to the rain. But just before we do that, and we're running a little behind, but just tell us a little bit about Earth Day. And I know it's hard to summarize in one or two sentences, but what you've done over the years in DC. You had an organization called Groundwork. You've done all kinds of things, and you're continuing to do so. I don't know if it's easier to jump into what you're doing now. Maybe we should do it that way. How would you like to start a conversation? I heard you with Lance on Saturday, and you're doing some work around rain and to help inform residents, particularly in Ward 7, but around the city, what they can do to protect themselves these days. So take it away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you. First of all, Joni, it's always a pleasure, to be on WPFW with you and with Chuck. We go back so far, so it's always a pleasure being on with you. And then it's so exciting to be back on with you on Earth Day 2024. We've spent many Earth Days talking about things over the years, and so it's really exciting. And I have this chance to be back on with you today and to talk about Earth Day.
Absolutely. And I'll just say it's in divine order that you're here with us today, Dennis. So keep going.
Sure. Well, of course, not to spend too much time on, I would tell everyone definitely Earth Day is even more significant now than it's ever been. Earth Day started April 22nd. 1970, and it was a result of a catastrophic oil spill that rose people's attention to the importance of us needing to focus on this. And we did, fortunately, had good political leadership, and things wound up moving forward. But to fast forward and to come to where we are now, you were talking about an effort that I've been involved with and involved in recently. And of course, most people are familiar with my work with Groundwork, Anacostia River, DC. We operated from 2008 until 2018. So it was a good 10-year run for our work. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about Groundwork. Folks are very familiar with a lot of the work we did, and also engaging young people, which is one of the most important things that I think we achieved out of Groundwork. Just to make a note on that, one young lady, and there's a number of them, but one young lady I'm very proud of, who came through our Groundwork Green Team program, graduated from Howard University, and participated in our Urban Archaeology Corps. And she completed her graduate work and is now back working for the National Park Service in the capacity of the director of the same program that she went through, the archaeology program at the National Park Service. She's running it. Her name is Alexis Morris, and I just wanted to shout her out because she is exactly what all of this work and what we've been doing is all about.
Yes, and let me just say, hopefully, Dennis, we can have you on and perhaps that young lady come back, because we don't want to waste more time without you being on the air. So
yeah, well, we'll make that happen. We will we will for sure make that happen.
Yes.
So getting into what we're doing, and I'm involved with an organization that I was instrumental in helping to get started, called the Resilience Hub Community Coalition. And we've started this work over here in Ward 7, primarily because Ward 7, this far northeast part of Ward 7, sits in the 100-year floodplain, 100 and 500-year floodplain. A lot of people may not understand that, but DC was basically built on a swamp, very swampy, marshy area. And we have two rivers, the Potomac River and the Anacostia, that basically border Washington, D.C. And Anacostia runs right through the center of Washington, D.C., divides Wards 7 and 8 from the rest of the city. And because of this geography, and we also here in far northeast Ward 7 have the largest tributary to the Anacostia River, which is Watts Branch. and the headwaters are up in Prince George's County, and it brings a tremendous amount of water through that stream into the Anacostia through Ward 7. So as a result of this geography, this particular ward in this particular part of the city, out of all of the people in the city that are located within of the 100 and 500 year floodplain, approximately 80% of those residents who are located in that floodplain reside in far northeast Ward 7. So one of the reasons that it became such an acute issue for us to focus on, along with our other work, but this just drew our attention because some people may remember just a couple of years ago, and I was talking to Lance on Saturday, and he remembered an experience that he had where his residence flooded in this tremendous storm that we had just about 2 years ago. And some people might remember some of the other flash floods that we've had. We had the one that resulted in the animals drowning in the pet hospital up on Rhode Island, and a number of other instances. But all of these are tied to something, not just the geography where we're located, but also what's driving a lot of this is that we're in this climate change, this climate crisis that we're confronting right now throughout the world, but we're bringing it down local. It is actually driving a lot of the challenges that we are having here in DC. And the one that's the most, as I said, acute to us right now is the flooding, because that's right up on the front of what we're doing here in Ward 7. So this Resilience Hub Community Coalition, we came together as just a group of citizens several years ago to see what we could do about it, and it wound up moving to the point where we actually created an organization called the Ward 7 Resilience Hub Community Coalition. And then we got some support from the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and the Department of Energy and Environment, our city's Department of Energy and Environment, which really stepped in and has been a technical assistant for most of this work. We developed this organization to begin to inform the community, to educate and raise the environmental literacy level of the community so that folks could really understand what's going on. And when you understand things a little, it's more of a possibility that you'll take some action. And what we've done also is we've piloted the first of what we call Resilience Hub in here in DC. So we've piloted the Resilience Hub incubator at the Fauntleroy Community Enrichment Center, which is located here in Ward 7 or at 4800 Nanny Helen Burroughs Avenue Northeast. And that Resilience Hub is designed to do a number of things, and folks can go to info at w7rhcc.org and get more information about our resilience work. They can also look up the Fauntleroy Center, that's the Fauntleroy Community Enrichment Center, and also go to the Department of Energy and Environment's website, which also highlights some of this work that we are involved in.
And there are some upcoming workshops you want to make sure.
Absolutely.
Doing a great. Listeners, I hope you get your pens. I know some of you still use pen and paper, which is always important to write down these dates that Dennis is going to be sharing. And after that, we have some other dates to share. Okay,
so let me jump right into it. So what we're sponsoring right now are a series of workshops called Flood Wise Rise Above. These workshops are designed to inform our community about what flooding is, all the kinds of flooding, what drives the flooding, also what they can do about it, preventive measures that can be taken, as well as ways that they can adapt to actually protect themselves in the event of this kind of climatic challenge. And then we finish up the series with informing people about insurance. Now, we're not selling insurance, but there is a national federal insurance program that is flood insurance through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, that a lot of people are just not aware of and familiar with. A lot of people think that their homeowners insurance or their property insurance covers floods that result from natural occurrences like this, but they don't. And this is why it's important for people to be aware and know about this FEMA flood insurance program as another way that they can protect themselves and their properties. So these workshops, we had one. The first one was on April the 11th. We have two additional ones coming up on April the 25th.
And that's Thursday. April
That's coming
25th is
Thursday.
Thursday. And what time is that one?
That's from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock on this coming Thursday at the Fontroy Community Enrichment Center.
Okay.
And then the next workshop that follows that will focus on the flood insurance will be on May the 9th, which will also be held at the Fontroy Community Enrichment Center at the same time.
And May the 9th is also John Brown's birthday, so you can remember that
very
too.
Significant. Yes, yes. And then we're going to repeat this series also starting at the end of May and run it through the 3-part series will be held over in the Parkside neighborhood. But right now, I want to really just keep folks focused on these next 2 upcoming workshops that are taking place on the 25th and on May 9th.
Okay.
And one thing I'd like to also add, and Lance picked up on it, we want to let the community know that we this is valuable information, but not only is it valuable information that we want to get across to the community, but we also want to let the community know that we value their time. So when they are taking their time out to come out and participate in this, we're giving everyone who signs up and participates a gift card for coming out and participating. So you not only will you get valuable information,
that's great,
but you'll also receive a stipend for your participation. So we really want to encourage folks to participate.
Yes,
get involved.
And we're gonna have to help, get this information out. Dennis, I hate to say that we're out of time, but again,
I know how time flies. Absolutely, yeah.
And because we have to give a few other important things happening this week. But if people want more information about these very important workshops coming up, including the one this Thursday night, you can go to info.w7rhcc.org. info@w7rhcc.org. Dennis, we're very proud of you and very happy you can be on with us today. And we're going to talk about how we can make sure that the listeners know about all these upcoming events. And I have to, before we're out of time, I need to quickly say a few other, but Dennis, I want you to stay on so you can hear your outgoing Leon Thomas song.
Absolutely.
But I want to let people know that tomorrow night, Tuesday night, C.R. Gibbs, another hero of ours, you can hear him for free Tuesday night at 6 p.m. at the Woodridge Library, talking about the forgotten history of D.C. Emancipation Day. Come on out. There's usually a great card. Bring your children, bring your grandparents, bring everybody. The forgotten history of D.C. Emancipation Day. We know that they do not teach this in the schools, but we have the blessing of having C.R. Gibbs with us. That is tomorrow night, 6 p.m., the Woodbridge Library over there in Ward 7, I think that is. The number for the library, you can find it, but it's 202-541-6226. Tomorrow night, C.R. Gibbs, The Forgotten History of D.C. Emancipation Day. Wednesday, there's going to be Harriet's Wildest Dreams told us about this recently, but there's a Free Her Rally. This is a national rally, the 10th year, and it's to liberate or help make sure that there are not that many particularly Black women locked up away from their children. It's over 150,000 women are incarcerated in this country of ours. There is a very important rally Thursday. It starts 11 a.m. at the Metropolitan AME Church, but they will be at Freedom Plaza this Wednesday from 12 to 4. This Wednesday, Free Her Rally and Harriet's Wildest Dreams will be out there, and I hope you will be out there too. Thursday night, in addition to Dennis's workshop, the Jackson Reed High School is putting together a Palestinian culture night. Palestinian culture night at Jackson Reed High School from 6:30 to 8:30. There'll be poetry, dancing. They are welcoming and urging the community to come join them. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, there will be many surprise protests and mobilizations going on against the genocide in Gaza, not only on the universities, but stay tuned to what's happening in those universities, but all over the country, and organized by Jews and others who do not want this genocide to be carried out in our name. This is a very special holiday of Passover. We are going to use this holiday to organize for divestment against Israel. It's going to be very militant movement that is going on this year. We're not just standing still for genocide. Thank you, Magic Mike, for all your help, and thank you very much, Dennis. And we're going out with Dennis's song by Leon Thomas, talking about the rain. That's why he wants you to know and come to these workshops to protect yourself against this possible flooding rain that could be coming to DC even more in the midst of this climate change. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Joni. Happy Earth Day, everybody.
If a cloud